Good evening, everybody. This is Pamela checking in on a video vlog this evening when my brother's out. I know it's almost 6 p.m., but I wanted to get on here tonight to talk to you guys about the Me Too movement, what it means for somebody like me and for others that have been through such experiences. And I'm going to be talking about Trump talk here at the end of the video here. First, I want to talk about the Me Too movement. Most men call it hate that women is expressing towards men. To me, it's something very different. Talk about some of my experiences. Yeah, I'm a sexual assault survivor. It did happen to me too. It started at 12 years old. My father was a longtime member of the Eagles Club, and we would often go up for family functions or when we had nothing better to do on a lazy afternoon, and we'd go up and hang out. I'd have my Shirley Temple and a bit of candy and schmooze with Dolly the bartender and hang out with all our old buddies from the campground. Till one day, I was sitting out in the main part of the pool room and sitting by myself at a big table in front of the fireplace. And some old guy walks over to me, sits down, puts his leg around the chair, and forces a kiss on me. I knew that wasn't right, but I didn't tell any of his friends because I didn't think they would believe me. But I managed to worm my way out of it by saying that my dad was probably ready to go home. He was playing a pool game at that time, and he might be done by now, so I gotta go. I literally begged my dad to take me home that day. Okay? He's like, well, why do you want to go home? I said, I just want to go home. I'm tired and I want to go home. So when I get home, I tell my mom everything that happened. And by this time I'm crying. I go into the bathroom and I'm just letting it all out. And my dad said to my mom, why didn't she tell me about it or one of my friends about it? And my mom laid it right out there for him because maybe she didn't want to tell you for fear you might not believe her or she was too embarrassed to tell you. Sure enough, he went right back up there and he put the word out at his Eagles Club that a certain person tried to force a kiss on me. And if he ever found out who they were, he was going to let him know how he felt, and that if he didn't stop picking on me, he was going to kick the guy's ass, and if he wasn't there, his own sons would stand up for me. Sure enough, I stayed in my house for weeks, doing things like either school or whatever the hell I was doing at the time, but I wouldn't go to the Eagles Club. They would have like a big get-together or something, and I would never go. And finally my dad says, Pam, honey, it's time to stop being afraid. I'm going to take you out, buy you your favorite Shirley Temple drink. We'll have a good time, all right? And knowing that my dad was going to be right there at all times, I knew he was going to protect me. So I'm sitting up there at the bar waiting for the bartender to get me some money to play the jukebox. And I look over across the bar over this way. And I see the guy looking at me. And I knew who he was. You never forget the face of somebody who has accosted you. Keep that in mind. And I said to my dad, I said, Dad. He's like, what, sweetie? And I said, you see that old guy over there? He was a 60-plus-year-old white guy with white hair and an angry-looking face. And he says, yeah, sweetheart, what do you want? He says, I said, you see that guy over there? And he was like, yeah. And I said, that's the guy that tried to force a kiss on me. And he's like, oh, really? He said, you stay here. I'll be right back. And he walked over and he told the guy, he says, you mess with my daughter, I'll kick your ass. If I'm not here, my own sons will kick your ass. Don't think you're going to pick on my daughter and get away with it. So, as my dad was walking over there, before all that happened, he had that look on his face like, you stupid bitch. You told your dad, didn't you? Sure enough, when he was found out, he stayed far away from me, and I heard he later died of old age. Flash forward to 2007, early 2008, New Year's of 2007. I go and spend a couple days at my friend's apartment. She follows a band that I've been following for a lot of years with her. And we took another service called Urban Express. And things were going along really good. We would go to places like the American Legion on South High Street, or we go to different places when we use the service other times before. But this one night, things started to change. We took the bus, Urban Express, to this New Year's Eve party, right? I get off the bus and try to get in before the rains come. And unfortunately, I didn't make it. But I didn't realize at the time that the driver that we had made a pass on my friend that was with me that night. And we go back to her apartment after the party. And things would get worse because when I go home, I get picked up at the scheduled time that I requested, which was around 7:30, 8 o'clock that night. We get over here to the house. And he says, well, are you hungry? And I'm like, well, yeah, my friend didn't have much food in her apartment. So like a dummy, not knowing that I was breaking any rules, which I admitted to in my statement to the lawyer, he went from here over to the McDonald's on Bryce and Livingston Avenue, or Bryce and Main, actually. And he pulls in, asks what I want to eat, and gets me a Big Mac, fries, and a Coke. And he had turned off the bus, went in and ordered the food. And he came out and gave it to me. And he says, as I was eating everything, he says, I want a piece of you. And I'm like, huh? He says, oh, yeah, I want a piece of you. I said, really? I want to say no. I said no to that shit. He's like, well, what do you mean? I said, no means no. He says, I want some of that pussy. We could go to a hotel. We could get it on right now. And this went on for a freaking eternity. It took several tries for him to understand no. No means no. I'm not some brain-dead bitch whom you can get over on. I was saddled in a wheelchair on one of those minivans that looks like a bus, but the wheelchair is sitting like I'm facing the camera. And can you imagine being saddled in a power chair with the bus turned off, no way to get off the bus, no way to put the lift down so I could escape? And at that time, I had no cell phone to call anybody either. That would freak my ass out if it happened today. My mom was so worried about me after so many spurning of this guy's advances. He finally gave up the ghost, brought me over home. Not only was my mom standing outside in early January weather in her nightgown and housecoat waiting for me, but the friend I had left some 45 minutes before was also waiting for me because I had a videotape that she had bought from FYE and came over to collect it. And she's like, after I got off the bus, the driver handed down my crutches to my mom. And I told the both of them, I said, I need to talk to you now. My mom was berating me. Where the hell were you? We were worried sick. My friend Sue said the same thing. Sue is the one that also got hit on by this asshole, okay? She goes, where were you? We were worried sick. And I said, well, I need to talk to you. And I must have looked like several shades of white because I had never got up that driveway as fast as I did in that old wheelchair of mine. And my mom's like, well, what's the matter? And I said, well, the driver that just dropped me off asked me to go to a hotel with him. And he says, I want some of that pussy. And I relay everything. And every time he had thrown out those advances, I said, no, no, no. And my mom said, how did you end up at McDonald's? And I said, well, when we got back here, he asked me if I was hungry. And he tried to use that as a way to get over on me, to take advantage of me. My mom's like, oh, God, oh, my God, you were out here and you went to McDonald's with him? She's like, you could have been killed. And I said, I know, Mom. I saw death in the face tonight. You think I'm happy about it? No. It happened to me when I was 12, and it's happened to me again. Doesn't feel good, Mom. And she says, well, I got to go inside, honey. I'm very cold. Come in when you feel like you're ready to come in. At that moment, I was so ashamed. I couldn't even face my dad. I cried outside for over an hour. But my friend Sue stayed for a couple more minutes, and she said, Pam, you're probably not the first person he's hit on. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And she goes, well, honey, he hit on me too. And I said, well, when? She goes, well, when he was taking me to and from work, and the night we went to the American Legion, the other night when we went to the American Legion. You might not have heard what he said. And I said, I thought I did, but I wasn't sure. I was in a hurry to get inside before the rain came, but the stupid place had their whole doors locked. And I had to get back out on that bus as the rain come pouring down that night. And she says, well, I feel bad. And I said, well, I don't know what we're going to do. And she says, well, I know what we're going to do. I'm going to call a lawyer, and we're going to fight this asshole. So she called Urban Express right there in the garage and said, take us off your list. My friend had just come home some 45 minutes after being picked up from my place. The guy took her from her house up to a McDonald's and started making unwanted advances against her after she got her food. And we went to a lawyer some days later. And I had to give my deposition like I'm giving it to you now. And my mom was there for such deposition. The lawyer came and met us at my friend's apartment complex. We used the meeting room. And I had to relive everything. I want a piece of you. I want some of that pussy. We can go to a hotel right now. We can get it on right away. And I said, well, no. I said, I need to get home. My mom and dad are probably worried about me. And when I said in my original video that it felt like a fucking eternity, that was a fucking eternity to me. And I cried outside for over an hour. My friend finally went home because she was ashamed and embarrassed and mortified. I couldn't go inside for the longest time because I was afraid my father was going to be mad at me. But when I finally did come in, I didn't even bother to plug in my power chair because I was so drained and emotionally burnt. I cried some more when I got in my front door, but I turned away from my father when he walked out. And I'm like, come on, Dad. Tell me what a piece of shit I am. Tell me what a slut I am. Tell me what a whore I am. And he's like, honey, you're none of those things. What that guy did was try to take your peace and serenity away from you. And I said, I'll never get it back. I'll never get it back. I may put it behind me, but I'll never get it back. And 2 days later, we went and talked to the lawyer, and he fought for months to get my case through the courts. But because I didn't have any physical evidence, they couldn't get it through the courts. They basically pushed it under the rug, like most of these sexual assault cases that happen in this country. And I have to live with emotional scars for the rest of my life. The first time it happened at 12 years old, the one friend of my dad's used to be one of the heads of that Eagles Club on Bryce Road. His name was Joey Posey. When he found out what happened to me, he pulled me aside and he says, "Well, how come you never told me about what was going on?" And I said, "Because I didn't think you'd believe a 12-year-old girl." And when it happened to me the second time, and the courts made light of it, it wasn't funny. It was like going through being stone mounted and kibbled. And the actual service that I use now solely stood by us. Well, we believe these ladies. Coda Mainstream said, well, we believe these ladies. Any evidence of sexual harassment, we're not going to take this lightly. If they say they've been sexually accosted, they've been sexually accosted. We're going to believe them. We're going to end the contract with Urban Express, because at that time, Urban Express was contracted by Coda to help with the ridership. And the owner of Urban Express called me and my friend Sue liars, but the lawyer that we had felt so bad. He says, "I'm sorry I couldn't get your case through the courts." And I said, "Well, at least I know you tried, and you tried like hell. I know you care. But you're not the one that has to live with the emotional scars of having men try to penetrate you or try to do things to you that you wouldn't want done to you. Doesn't feel good." In my original Me Too video, I want people to know what it feels like. It's like somebody taking a dagger into your soul and wanting to kill you emotionally and physically. And people ask me, "Have you ever considered suicide after things like this?" Oh, yes. Goddamn gnats. But I'm like, yes, I have considered suicide. It makes you feel so useless, so dirty, so unwanted. I walk through my house and say, well, maybe I should be dead. Maybe I should take a gun and blow my motherfucking head off. Doesn't feel good. And as I said in my original video, when you're sexually accosted, it takes away your life force. You're kind of left to feel, maybe that sucker's going to come back. Maybe he'll attack me when one of you guys ain't around. I had that fear. And sometimes I still have that fear. And my dad said, well, if that guy ever showed up, I would have put my prosthetic leg up the guy's ass. And knowing my dad, being the fierce defender of me as he was, he probably would have done it too. But when I said, go ahead, call me a slut, call me a bitch, tell me what you think of me. And he's like, no, you've been through enough. I'm just glad you came home, he said. And he says, are you going to talk to a lawyer? And I said, oh, yeah. My friend Sue is on it. We are going to deal with this. Whether we win or we lose, we're talking about my pride and self-respect here. So, this is well over 12 years later. And it still feels as raw as the day it happened. Having something like that happen, it changes your whole perspective about how people treat each other. Men treat women, how women treat men. Sexual assault can happen on both sides of the sex, even in the transgender community, even in the gay community. Things like this can happen, and it doesn't feel good. you know? And as I've said, there are times I just want to close myself off from the world. There are times I felt like getting a gun and blowing my head off, but I don't. I don't do it because I've seen what it does to families. I had a friend of my brother's, commit suicide back in 2001, and it tore his whole family apart. I may be tortured, but I'm not willing to hurt my family to take my own life. And I feel it's important to talk about things like this because just because you don't have physical evidence doesn't mean it didn't happen. And when men don't respect women and women don't respect men for their values, they're not worth dealing with. And the scary thing is about the driver that I had that night, he had two beautiful sons. But I wonder if they knew if their father was such a goddamn deviant. To this day, I think that. Did they know that their dad was such a goddamn deviant? Doesn't feel good. Doesn't feel good at all. And my mom, she had to witness me cry like a banshee on 2 counts. And it doesn't feel good. The time when I was 12 and the time in 2007 when I was about 36 or so. It doesn't feel good. Doesn't feel good at all. And people think of the Me Too movement as a way of women of striking men down. I look at it this way. Me Too is a way of striking perverted men down. Stuff like grab them by the pussy doesn't feel good. Now to get into the meat of this video here, the reason why I feel so strongly against the grabbing pussy jokes or moving in on people like a bitch, it doesn't sit well with me. As someone who is a sexual assault survivor, it doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel good to live with the ghost that somebody might want you for anything but love. And I want to tell people that if you've been sexually accosted, tell somebody about it. Tell the police. Tell your family. And if it's a member of your family doing that shit, definitely take it to the district attorney's office. That's what me and my friend did. We may have been treated like a bastard at a family reunion, but I stood up for my rights as a human being and my rights as a person. And nothing feels more helpless than being strapped down on a little bus with no way to get off that bus and no way to call your family if you didn't have a cell phone. But you can bet after that happened, I went right out and spent probably about $50 to $75 for my first cell phone. And I've had one ever since, and I never leave home without it. And let's talk about people like Harvey Weinstein and Bill Cosby and Donald J. Trump to finish out this video. People that do that, getting their joys about grabbing pussy or making sex tapes, people like that belong in jail. No amount of therapy is going to cure them. No amount of anything is going to cure them. Maybe a bat to the head. And I've had friends from the Eagles Club. One guy was our Santa Claus, and he says, if I ever did anything to make you feel uncomfortable, Pam, I'm sorry. And I said, well, I know it wasn't you. You weren't the one that was forcing a kiss or having your foot around the chair. I know what's right and I know what's wrong. And especially when they tell your butt you want to go to a hotel. Hell no. Nope. I'm forever celibate because of this. I may put it in the back of my mind. I may be all smiles on some of my videos. But when I see people like Billy Bush and Donald Trump batting on a joke about grabbing pussy, he gets fired, Billy Bush gets fired, and asshole gets the White House. Answer me that, will you? I could grab him by the pussy. I could move in on him like a bitch. I don't even ask. I could move in on him like a bitch. I can grab him by the pussy. If that was my son, he would be out of my life. He would be out of my life. Those things don't feel good. That sounds like predatory, perverted talk to me. But it's like some of those jokes in Philadelphia. What do you call a woman with PMS and da 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 da? A bitch who knows everything, right? A real man would stand up for their loved one, A real man would stand up for a woman that was sexually accosted. A real man would clean somebody else's clock. And I'm glad I had my dad there to protect me that second time at the Eagles. And especially the last time that happened was less than a year before my father would leave this planet. And he says, Pammy, if that guy ever comes back, I'll shove my prosthetic leg right up the guy's ass. I may be getting older and sicker, but I'm willing to fight for my daughter. So, yeah, doesn't feel good. Doesn't feel good at all. Me Too is important because women who have been sexually accosted, whether it's by a man, somebody on the street, a family member, or a coworker. And the same thing can be said for guys if they've been accosted by women. The transgender can go through that. Even if little kids have been raped and sodomized, they need to speak out about their traumas. It's the only way you'll move forward. You can't let it stay in your soul. I talk about this every once in a while because it helps with the healing process, but I let people know that being sexually accosted does not feel good. It doesn't feel good. And if you have any thoughts of suicide, please call the National Suicide Prevention Hotline. It's not worth taking your life and imploding your family with it. I've seen it once, but I've seen it once with my brother's friend who had a lot of things go wrong, and I didn't realize he was so far down that I don't know if I could have helped him. His wife left him, took the kid, and he went out and bought a bunch of stuff and took drugs. And when he was despondent, he hung himself in his own backyard, not even a block or two over from me. And his whole family broke apart because of that. I'm not willing to hurt my family like that. I could let what happened to me beat me, or I could stand up here and talk about it and kick its ass in the same breath. I'm willing to stand here and tell you about my scars. I don't have a boyfriend, I don't have a husband, and I don't want either one. I don't want either one. I'd rather be a person in solo flight. No man, no sex, no none of that. The only real man I ever trust in my life is my older brother. Because he's always here, he takes care of me, and he would kick anybody's butt that got something over on me, especially the sexual assault stuff. Doesn't sit well with me. And when I hear people like R. Kelly doing sex tapes and holding women hostage at his house, that to me is a problem. And I heard he might be going away for a long time. I haven't heard anything new on R. Kelly. And speaking about Trump's ass, he's had a notion of being touchy-feely on other women. It's no secret. They are called serial cheaters for a reason. I could walk up on them like a bitch. I don't even have to ask. In my world, you have to ask. In my world, you act like a man and not a weasel. Let me see. Billy Bush is back on TV now, but back when he worked for, I think it was Extra. Let me look that up. Billy Bush Pussygate. Okay. Yeah, let me see. Here's the Hollywood Reporter. And Billy Bush says Access Hollywood Trump tape was weaponized. Let me get the article clip for you. And this says, he says, quote, "I got taken out, but I wasn't the target," unquote. The Now Extra host told Gayle King of his role in the 2016 scandal involving then candidate Donald Trump in a clip from their interview for CBS Sunday Morning. And this is from 9/9/2019. So this is a more current article. Again, he says, "I got taken out, but I wasn't the target," he says. The new Extra host told Gayle King of his role in the 2016 scandal involving the then presidential candidate Donald Trump in a clip from their interview for CBS this morning. As he makes his return to TV as host of Extra, Billy Bush is now once again speaking about the infamous Access Hollywood tape with then Apprentice host Donald Trump, in which the man who would be president is heard bragging about grabbing women, quote, "by the pussy." In a sit-down with Gayle King that aired in part on Monday's CBS This Morning, Bush had said he wasn't prepared for the controversy around the video when the 2005 recording surfaced in 2016, because it happened so quick. He added that everyone at ABC was aware of the tape before it was even released. "I was comfortable it wasn't going to be weaponized," he said, before saying that he feels like that's how the tape was used. "I got taken out," Billy says, "but I wasn't the target," unquote. The TV host revealed that he wasn't concerned about how the tape would impact his career after the initial release. He was told, "You're good. Don't worry about it. It's not you. You didn't say anything," he said. "It was leaked on a Friday, and then on a Sunday morning, I walked out of that door right there with my bags to get back to work. And the driver said, 'I'm sorry, they canceled the car.'" While Bush assumed that the car's cancellation was a mistake, his lawyer informed him that he wouldn't be returning to his job on NBC's Today. Referring to the tape, Bush says the tape was filmed during his first year as co-host on Access Hollywood. Quote, "You want people to like you," he said. I became a very different guy, so the guy that got fired, no question, was a very different guy," unquote. Bush added he didn't feel comfortable disagreeing with Trump's lewd comments. Trump's the kind of guy who would say, "Forget Billy Bush." Then I may have gotten, "Hey, why did you lose Trump? He's the biggest guest we've had." He says you're a little anxious around him because you just wanted to end well and get out. He says he feels like the tape was a tipping point in the Me Too movement. It was a very hot, emotional time, and maybe that helped trigger it. I think that's a good thing, he said. Now that Bush is making his TV return to Extra, he doesn't feel like he's starting over. Though he said he's picked up some missing elements in the past few years. It's a deeper empathy and patience. The second part of Bush's interview with King aired on Tuesday. After he pointed out that he was fired for a moment in 2005, unquote, Bush said the clip would not have resurfaced if Trump wasn't running for president. If he wasn't running for president, that moment would never have occurred. That was about him, not me, says Bush. Bush added that he's not angry at Trump. He was being him. I think that part of his personality and character is why he was successful at a boardroom, making people fight over lemonade stands, he said. Let's see what else it says. I look back at when it was released and thought I was due for some kind of reckoning in my life, he continued. I don't think I'd ever really been through anything difficult. Bush admitted he did think about hurting himself after he was fired, but added he didn't seriously consider himself to be a candidate for self-harm. Your mind plays terrible games on you when you're lying on the floor and you're crying and pulling your hair out and you don't know what you're doing. He said, I have beautiful daughters. I have family. I would never do that personally. He concluded that he got close to the end of the rep, but not the phrase. Following the release of that tape, Billy had received a phone call from his cousin, George W. Bush. He called me and said, you're not lying in bed, are you? He recalled. And I was like, I got out of bed. When Bush told his cousin that he wanted to fight back, the former president had other advice for him. He said, no. Just, take what they give you and walk away and work on you, said the TV personality. Bush also reflected on the backlash from the tape inspired him to be a better interviewer. I won't be that guy that piles on, he said. I look forward to sitting with people who have been through something, and I hope that they look forward to sitting with me because they know, well, there's one person that's not going to be super judgy on me and their perch. Goes on to say, let's see. And it says here, Bush previously spoke to the Hollywood Reporter about the tape just 7 months after the controversy. Looking back upon what was said on that bus, I wish I had changed that topic. Trump liked TV and competition. I could have said, can you believe the ratings on whatever? But I didn't have the strength or the character to do it, he admitted. He also shared his initial thoughts when the tape was released. I thought that we would work through it and address people. I put together an apology right away. The one you saw, I told people that I was ashamed and embarrassed. And I was. So in the beginning, I thought, okay, we'll go and own the moment. And then I got home and started to become apparent that I would not be returning to today. Bush added that he first watched that tape 3 days before it went public. I was shocked, alarmed, and completely gutted. It was awful, and my perception was awful too, he said. I remember that guy. He was almost psychopathic. And I'm going to look for those clips of CBS Sunday Morning. Well, I think you learned a valuable lesson. Don't do bathroom jokes or nasty jokes that harm women. Doesn't feel good. Here's that story about the Hollywood Reporter. This is a more current story, so I'm not reading old news. And to be honest, I'm surprised Billy Bush is back on TV, but that's not my problem. I don't watch Access Hollywood or none of that garbage. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this little video. Share this video. If you know somebody that's been sexually accosted, tell them they're not alone in their fight. I mean, I still deal with scars every day, and it's the most traumatic thing you would ever live through in your life. The first guy that tried to make moves on me died of old age. The second one would later get fired when they found pornographic images on his camera at his job at Urban Express. Justice came, but not for me. It came later on when that guy got fired. But I still live with the emotional scars, and they'll never go away. That's why I think people like Trump. Oh, shit. Hold on. Oh, damn. It's been like this all day. God damn it. Must not have been important because I hang up. But anyway, being sexually accosted, you never forget the face of somebody who has accosted you. The older gentleman was white, and the other gentleman that did it to me in 2007, 2008 was black. So, yeah. Can't play the race card this time. Both guys got their just desserts, if you want to know the truth. And anybody who does the sexual assault and wanting to grab pussy should lose their hands or the rest of their reproductive organs separated from their anatomy. Get rid of their family jewels. Rip out any reproductive organ known to science so they can't harm anyone. Doesn't feel good. You know, and I've been through where I wanted to commit suicide, but I saw what suicide could do firsthand, and I'm not willing to do that to my family. So videos like this get me fired up to talk about it, and I feel it needs to be talked about. Me Too is not about taking men down. It's about taking down degenerate people like Trump, like any woman that does that shit. Like any guy that does that shit. Any transgender does that shit. Doesn't feel good. And especially those that rape little ones that don't have a voice. Some of these kids that are raped and sodomized are little tiny kids. Doesn't feel good. So think about it. Me Too stands for something for me. Get your story out there. Talk about it. Talk about it. Talk about it. It helps you in your healing process. It may give other people the strength to stand up for what's right. You know, and like my dad said, if that guy ever came back, he would have put his prosthetic leg up the guy's ass. And like he told the first gent when I was 12 years old, you pick on my daughter, I'm going to kick your ass. And if I'm not here, my own sons will kick your ass. And he let that whole club know that if he ever saw that old guy, he was going to have words with him. And he wasn't going to be nice about it. And I'm glad I had a father that was so fiercely defensive of me. Somebody has to. I wonder what he would think of Trump's actions. You know, people like Trump, people like R. Kelly, people like Cosby, they're not men, they're weasels. And women who do that, you know, they rape and post this old, I'm a victim shit on other people when there could be dirty targets in there too. I want you to check out the following film, Disclosure, the one with Demi Moore and Michael Douglas. It talks about sexual harassment in the workplace, but it's not men on women, it's women on men in that story. But if you want me to share my original Me Too video, let me know, because it'll tell you all about that movie. I want you to watch that. Nobody deserves to live under the boot of their assailants. Even though my case never got through the courts when it happened to me in 2007, early 2008. You know, just because it didn't make it through the courts doesn't mean it didn't happen. Doesn't feel good. Now that I got that out of the way, again, let me finish this up with Trump. I hear that idiot may be up for impeachment, but they've been saying that for months. Yep, I think whoever's the head of the House or the head of this committee, Pelosi, they keep talking about impeachment push, But they've been talking about this for months. And if they don't impeach this guy, I think they're all dirty. Time to throw them all out of the White House. They're not worthy of being in the White House. They talk about the Bill of Rights and the Constitution, but they're not living up to it. They're not living up to it. And they're allowing a guy like Trump to continue to break law after law after law. And I'm not going to let Trump live down these comments. I could shoot somebody on Fifth Avenue and not lose voters. I could grab him by the pussy. I could move in on him like a bitch. And don't forget his constant mocking of Senator John McCain and the mocking of disabled people. And I think he made slams against the black community. And I got a lot of black brothers and sisters in my life. Some I've went to school with. You say anything bad about them, they should come after you. They don't deserve it. It's not the 1950s anymore. And old dumpster turd is a big racist and a big narcissist. I'm done with him and his whole cabinet and all those people that are being paid off by Trump. I'm more inclined to believe that he's been he's been paying those people off. They keep talking impeachment. And I finally said, well, damn it, get on with it, man. I'm getting old over here. I don't watch much in the way of news. I'm already a borderline high blood pressure patient. I don't have the stomach for him anymore. And people were telling me in the beginning, don't worry, he's not going to be elected. And when he was elected, he won't be in office for long. And I said, bullshit, you watch. Nothing but 3 years of bleeding agony. I feel like my eyes are bleeding sometimes. Makes me sick. And if he's not impeached, I say we vote them all out. Get rid of the House and the Senate. And I'm surprised somebody hasn't done anything to harm Trump by now. But then you never know. And I heard he's made some calls to a foreign dignitary asking to investigate certain nominees for the POTUS. That should call for impeachment. Just like he was wanting to put Clinton's ass in jail. It's the same MO. He'll take out anybody that stands in his way. He did it to Clinton, and now he's doing it to whoever else he's going up against. Keep an eye on your local news. I have the TV off for tonight because I haven't been feeling well. So, yeah. But I will share an article here. It's on Facebook. Pelosi makes announcement on impeachment from ABC News Politics. Yep, and they keep talking about it. But I'm sick of it. They either need to grow up or get out. Everything Trump does makes me feel like I gag. It's like eating a Brussels sprouts. And I know there are kids out there that hate those things. Every time they see a Brussels sprout, they gag. Every time I see Trump, I want to puke. So, yeah. But watch my Me Too story. If you want to skip past this, watch the beginning of the video. If you want me to share my original video, let me know in the comments section. Believe me, being sexually accosted isn't pretty. It leaves a lifelong scar on you. It's a stripe that you don't want to bear. But it makes me mad, and it makes me want to fight to ensure that my niece doesn't have to deal with it, that my relatives don't have to deal with it. No other generation should have to deal with sexual molestation or rape. People who do that shit need to have their reproductive organs separated from the rest of their anatomy. That's how I feel on it. And people like Donald Trump, Kevin Spacey, Bill Cosby, and Mr. Weinstein, to name a few, should all be in Folsom Prison for the rest of their days. But we know that Bill Cosby will be out in less than 10 years, but he will have to register as a sex offender. R. Kelly will no longer get away with his crimes. I think he's up for trial sometime soon, but I haven't heard anything more about it, so I don't know. But people like that, no amount of therapy is going to cure them. No amount of therapy is going to cure those assholes. They need to be locked up in a sanitarium. Better yet, they should show pictures of women who have been raped and murdered. But then what do you expect from a guy like Trump who has married a poster girl turned hooker, in my mind? You know, the whole White House makes me mad. The whole government makes me mad. And people who do that, do all that sexual talk, it doesn't belong in public. Doesn't belong anywhere. Oh, I could grab him by the pussy. Blah, 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 blah. I wonder how Trump managed to escape not being arrested. I wish Extra had turned in that tape years ago. But no. You know, Billy Bush gets fired and Trump gets the presidency. See, a lot of things wrong with that. They both should have lost their jobs. Billy Bush is lucky to get back in the TV game, but I'm not very trusting of very many people because of that. How can you? And as I've said in many videos on my other channels, there's not a lot to trust to say in this world, so. That's what I mean. Sex traffickers, rapists, they all need to be locked the fuck up. It's not okay to groom kids. It's not okay to beat them either. Child beater, people beaters, rapists, whoever else is out there that does bad shit, they should all be locked up and never let out. Too many people that do this shit take too many plea deals to save them from the death penalty. I'd say incinerate the sons of bitches. I'm not groomed for nothing. I'm not groomed for nothing. At least I know what commitment is. I know what respect is. And if something doesn't feel right to you, you talk about it. And I told my parents about it. They stood by me. My bus service that I ride now solely stood by me. And the law system is fucked up. You almost have to be half dead in order to be believed, pal. I've been there. I'm going to block you, motherfucker. Then you're programmed too. You must be a Trump humper, huh? You're out, pal. You're done. Don't give me that program shit. At least I'm a good person and not a slime ball like Trump, okay? Take your narrow ass out of here. Hope nobody you know gets raped, you son of a bitch. Don't get me started. If I had my way, I would put them all on the rack. All the rapists, all the groomers, all the pimps on the front lines and get rid of them all by any means necessary. Need to bring back the good old-fashioned firing squad. That's swift justice right there. Make them feel pain before they die. So unless you don't know somebody that has been raped and sodomized, you have no idea what I deal with. You have no idea what some of these other people deal with for 40 or 50 years. Think about it. Better yet, why don't you go join Cosby in prison, you motherfucker? Don't got time for that, man. And like I said, ain't no amount of therapy is going to cure those fucks. Now you know how I feel about locker room talk and all the bullshit. And by the way, Cosby got caught when another brother called him out. Hannibal Buress, look it up. Hannibal Buress called out Cosby's ass. And that took him down several thousand pegs in about time. So, to the person that left here, you know, I'm glad I blocked your ass, you stupid cunt. You know, at least I'm a good person and not a deviant like Trump or Mr. Weinstein. Give me a break, man. Anybody else have anything they want to say before I shut this down for the night? I'm getting ready to put my butt to bed. My back's killing me and I'm just plain fried. Well, now you know my feelings about how I feel. Look, bud, I talk about my life experiences here. What happened to me happened to me. You don't believe me? Fuck you. Try sitting in a wheelchair on a little bus. No phone, no other way to get off. Being accosted by some black dude that looks old enough to be my granddad, and he had two beautiful sons. Just because he had beautiful sons doesn't mean he's not a deviant. Give me a break, bitch. Well, gang, I'm getting off. I'm tired and I'm pissed off. Yeah, well, you're out, pal. You are out, man. You are out. Don't think you're going to come in on my channel and give me problems. I'll ban any name you got. So unless you know somebody that has been raped, sodomized, burnt, killed, look up the case of Judy Malinowski. She was a woman that got burned up by her old boyfriend here in Columbus and died a couple of years later. One good thing about me is I stayed out of abusive relationships. I've come across some abusive guys in my life, okay? Don't need it, don't want it, don't care. Those that feel they have to have absolute control over a woman, they are so low on themselves, it's not even funny. But you know what? When those people try to cut me off from my family, I tell them where to go and how high to jump. Ain't nobody gonna keep me from members of my family. I got enough shit to deal with, pal. I just hope my relatives don't die from cancer. That's a big problem. And one of them just landed in a nursing home here a few days ago, so I don't want to talk about it right now. I can't give you any more information than that. Otherwise, shut up. Good night, everybody. This video's done. I'm out, and I'm tired. I'm baked. And fuck those who don't believe me. Hopefully somebody will rape somebody you know. And then you'll know how it really feels. Goodbye, everybody.